Now on Sports Talk, it's SC Wild with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer is here to take your questions about the great outdoors in South Carolina. Give him a call at 888-898-2525. It's SC Wild from DNR on the Sports Talk Radio Network.
All right, time to welcome in Major Billy Downer, another session of SC Wild from DNR here on Sports Talk. Major, good to have you with us. How are you?
Great to be here, sir. Sorry for being a few minutes late, but we're here.
That's quite all right. You know, I always say things don't begin till I arrive, and with you, SC Wild doesn't begin until you arrive.
There you go. Yeah.
Doesn't matter when you get there as long as you get there. All right, first thing I want to throw at you, and I know you got some things you want to comment on and talk about as well.
Sure.
I want to ask you about, and I just stumbled upon this because I was up early one morning and turned on the television and started watching it. The Bassmaster Classic held last weekend at Lake Murray. Lake Murray. And I was watching these guys out there. First thing I would tell you that none of them were wearing life jackets or anything, but they're professionals. But watching these guys pulling these big bass out of the lake and all that, how involved is DNR in that event? Do you guys get involved in some way, number one? And number two, from an outdoorsman standpoint and a fishing standpoint, how big is that event for the state of South Carolina?
All right, so multiple questions there. Let me kind of hit those from different angles. First of all, let me back up and start the first question. What are we involved? So DNR is not involved in the BASS, the Bassmasters, because they have their own. They did it on Lake Murray, and they did the weigh-in right there, and they have their own basically boats to transport fish. Where we are involved a lot of times, if they do an off-site weigh-in where fish are taken in boats and they do the weigh-in, they pick them up, you see them putting them up and doing the weigh-in off-site. We have tanks and things available to help transport fish, keep them healthy, and take them back to whatever various lakes across the state that they use. But when they do it right there on site at the landing, so to speak, there's not a need for transport, and they had their own transport boats there, so they took care of it. I talked to our fisheries chief, Ross Self, and he was explaining to me how because I knew that you were going to ask that question, just what we did this past time, and that was the answer. We weren't involved in BASF and the Bassmasters, but we have been involved in the past, FLW and the new series now, when they ask, for these big tournaments, large tournaments, when they go to do this huge stage performance and, bring the fish out, and we help get the fish back. Purpose of that is, of course, the safety of the fish, keep the fish alive, get them back to the lake. And the good news is a lot of people may not understand that. In these bass tournaments, they're not taking fish out of the lake and keeping them.
Mm-hmm.
Those fish are actually transported back and released back in the lake. And I can tell you this, things I know from studies that have been done on Lake Marion at the John C. Calhoun Land facility there on Tawkaw Creek. When they will release fish there, you think, and you can, the next day, if you go fish around the bank, you're going to have 8, 9, 10-pound fish everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some there. But eventually they make their way back, even to the other lake, to the lower lake from the upper lake, to where they came from. So that's been proven. The fish actually move back to where they came from. So it's pretty interesting that they, in a sense, quote unquote, migrate. Now,
do you find that most of the fish that are taken in the tournament, and then they're put in the wells, and then they're kept until they're weighed and then displayed, and then you want to take them back, most of them survive all that and they're good to go when you put them back in the lake?
There's a pretty good survivability factor for sure. Now, you're not going to sit here and say that there's not any that there's not any die.
Yeah.
There certainly are some that die. But to that point, at least they are trying to take all these fish back and put them back.
Yeah.
Most of them live, and they do a pretty good job of keeping them. And I don't know what the percentages are. I can ask that question for later. That most of those fish do live, but there are small percentages that do die from shock or whatever else. So that does happen. But again, the point being that these tournaments are now releasing fish. They don't keep them, and take them home, fry them all. and all the fish are gone. The fish get put back in the lake where they came from. So that's pretty neat when you think about that from that standpoint. Now, you ask another question, what does this mean to the local area? I can tell you that economically across the state, bass tournaments bring in it's several $1 million to the state a year. It's incredible. Because what you have to think about, hotel stays, food, restaurant industry, everybody these people come, they stay places, they eat places, they spend money. So that industry is huge as far as bringing in. It's a pretty good industry for South Carolina as far as a tourism standpoint, if you want to call it tourism, to host these tournaments on all of our lakes. Lake Murray, Lake Marion, Santa Cooper Lakes, and then you got up in the upstate, Hartwell. So a lot of our lakes have these type tournaments, and they bring a lot of attention. So it's pretty good economically for our state as far as that goes, and it's particularly in the local economy where you have hotels, restaurants, things of that nature.
Outstanding. We're visiting with Major Billy Downer. It's SC Wild from DNR here on Sports Talk. Take some phone calls for the Major, 888-898-2525. Couple of lines are open. You can get through to him. And James was with us a moment ago talking some football, but he also had a question or two for you, Major. So, James in Sumter, thank you for hanging on. You're on with Major Billy Downer.
Okay. Hey, Major. Hey, thank you for taking my call tonight, y'all. You guys love the show. I got 3 questions for you. They're all kind of loaded. So, one, what are we going to do about turkey season? Are they going to push turkey season back to April the 12th or something like that? That's one, because I love to hunt turkeys. Number 2, I was talking to a lady last year that lives in Manning, South Carolina, near the lake, and she said that she saw a snake, and this is a credible person. This lady said this snake was so big that was crossing the road that she stopped her car. She drives a little Toyota. She stopped the car and was scared to death at how big it was going across the road. So my question is South Carolina, are we having any invasive species coming up from Florida, the big pythons or something? And my last question is, what is the most dangerous lake with the biggest gators? We were debating, me and some of the guys were debating this. Is it Santee, Marion, or is it Lake Moultrie, where the biggest gators are found in South Carolina? And I'll hang up and listen, man. Love the show.
Thank you.
That's 3 loaded questions.
That's a man after my heart there at the very end. He's after my heart there, Major.
He brought you in, no doubt about it. So let's go. Question 1 was about turkey season. So currently, the turkey season, again, we are a legislative state. What that means is that our General Assembly, our state legislature, they determine our seasons. It's all set by law. There is a bill going through concurrently House and Senate that would change turkey season, and our department has been in support of the change in turkey season. We've talked about this on the show prior to turkey season. We had Jay Cantrell on here. We've talked about that, but once again, where it's going to land right now, don't know. Don't even want to speculate where the dates would end. I will tell you that what the department had presented was that there was the presentation or the department's view of turkey season was we needed to move the start dates back to allow time for turkeys to nest, the turkey hens to go to nest. In other words, if they go into nest, that means they've been bred by the tom. So giving the toms time to breed before we shoot them if they got shot or taken by a hunter. So giving them time to breed to carry that species on. So that was part of it. Moving the start date back away from March into March and more into April. That's one of those things. The second thing was reducing the limit down to 2. And that was mainly our stance, was trying to reduce the limit to 2, because I can tell you myself in my area, in the area where I hunt on my end of Sumter and Eau Claire, there are less birds than there used to be. Mm-hmm. And everybody sees that differently. It depends on where you are. Some people see plenty of birds. They're like, well, we don't understand why you wanted to cut the limit. Well, your area may be blessed with lots of turkeys, but across the state, most people are seeing a downtrend in the number of turkeys. So again, moving that start date, I think the studies showed that April 10th was when most hens had gone to nest. So that was a date that had been pushed around. But again, we don't know when the date's going to be in there. And that was really the department's stance. There's been some talk of safety issues like fanning. Those issues always get brought up. Fanning's where somebody takes a fan, or turkey fan, or a simulated turkey fan, and uses it to conceal themselves. And because of the way a gobbler or a male turkey reacts to a fan, they will actually come at you if you're holding a fan and walking toward them or kneeling and crawling. But the problem with that is generally people are sitting behind a fan with a gun. That is illegal on our WMAs on public land because it's a safety issue. This definitely is, because you're pretending to be a turkey. Not only are you pretending to be with sound, you're actually looking like you're trying to look like one walking with a fan, and that's just a hunter education no-no. That's you're waiting for a misidentification of target all day long. So that's basically turkey season in a nutshell. Second thing you talked about was snakes. At this time, I am not aware of any large boa constrictors, pythons that we have a problem with in South Carolina. We don't have a problem with that. The reason the Everglades does, Florida, which is extreme south of Florida, again, south of Florida, their temperature is more tropical. They don't get the freezes and things down there in that lower portion enough that would prevent a snake like that from living. So snakes like that can't survive a cold winter. Fortunately, in South Carolina, we have cold winters, cold enough that would prevent a snake like that from surviving. Does that mean that there are no boa constrictors? That somebody didn't let one out? It doesn't mean that. Because I can tell you people are still, well, I hate to use the word stupid, but people sometimes just don't think. And they let things go. That's what happened with the tegus. We had the problem with the tegus, which are the lizards we have in the state that are surviving because people had them as pets and let them go. And so we create our own problems by letting things go. Fortunately, though, those big snakes don't survive in our environment typically. So, but to date, we don't have a problem. Nothing near or even resembling Florida. Not even aware of one, but I'm not saying that somebody wouldn't let one out and be silly, But again, our cold winters do help us. So that's question 2. So no boas going across the road that would be that big, or anacondas, nothing like that.
No.
So number 3, alligators. So as far as alligators, the biggest alligators, the meanest again, alligators, we've talked about this before. We have more alligators than we ever have. So we have more human-alligator interaction. Unfortunately, that means that the alligator loses because the alligator has a brain the size of a walnut, tells him to do 2 things, again, neither of which I want him to do to me. That's reproduce or eat. As far as the big alligators, toss up Lake Marion, Lake Moultrie, I'm not sure that there's a winner there either way because there's some pretty large gators also on the coast on some of the plantations where you have really fertile marsh areas with lots of food sources. So there's some really big gators down there as well. Between Lake Marion and Lake Moultrie, again, toss up. There's 13-footers there and larger. I've told the story years ago. Over 26 years ago, I was a part of removing a 13-foot zero gator, and 6 inches of his tail had been bitten off. Probably when he was younger. But anyway, that was a long time ago, 800 pounds, large gator. And the only reason we removed him, because he was in the refuge area, was because he had been shot with a fishing arrow through the back and the stomach. That was before we even had a alligator season. So somebody night fishing shot him with an arrow, and he was like a periscope, go up and he'd go down. So he was suffering, so we removed him. But again, there are 13-foot gators in Marion and Moultrie. Toss up, can't tell you which one's bigger. I can tell you that. They're there. But there are also some big ones on the coast, and I will say that. So I would reserve the coast as a possible site for a large gator as well.
How about the Waccamaw?
Yeah, the Waccamaw Basin, yep. When you go down, so you get to the coast and the coastal areas, yes. Those are opportunities as well.
Yeah. All right, great question. We got a couple minutes left. I want to ask you about, am I saying them right, cicadas? Cicadas. Tell me about cicadas, and what are we going to do about it? Are they a problem in South Carolina?
No, I'm aware of a cicada. Is a beautiful noise at night you hear. When you hear that noise at night in the country, that's a cicada.
But aren't people? Did I not read something about people complaining about them or something?
Well, I might. I don't know. I am not an entomologist, so I'm not big on the insects. I will look into that. There's a problem. I'm not aware of it, but that's just part of country living.
Mm-hmm.
You hear them at night. You hear that beautiful sound, that buzz sound in the middle at night.
Are we having an overflow? Are we having an overflow of them in the state?
Not that I'm aware of. We haven't been in. We don't have a plague that I'm aware of. No, I'm not aware of any plague of cicadas. No, not overrunning us. No.
All right, that's good. That's good. You got anything you want to toss out there that's on your mind?
So now you're throwing me 4 curveballs tonight. I've handled all of them.
Yes, you have. Like an Aaron Judge home run. He hit one 467 just a minute ago. That's what you did. You hit these out of the park like Aaron Judge.
Well, I can tell you right now, the big focus is boating season. As we get ready for Memorial Day coming just around the corner. Again, want to urge folks to just be careful when you go out in the water. Make sure you do your pre-inspections on your boat. Look for your safety equipment. Make sure you have all that safety equipment on your boat. Make sure you have life jackets for everybody on the boat. They fit everybody that's going to be on the boat, and that they are in good working condition, and that they are in a location that you can get them if you need to in a time of an emergency. And that would not be under your seat locked up. So lots of options out there, Phil. You talked about the Bass Pros out there fishing. A lot of them do not wear life jackets when they're actively fishing. But when they put the motoring gear, they got to have a life jacket on. I think that's one of the rules.
Okay.
So they do have life jackets on the boat. Most of them are going to wear inflatables because it's very easy for them to wear, particularly in the hot months. Sometimes they'll wear a float coat during the winter months, but as it gets warmer, they're going to wear the inflatables, which are easily worn. Again, that's a good suggestion. If anybody wants to have a life jacket that's not very hefty, not bulky like your Type 2s. And we'll do a show in the future and talk about the new numbering system for life jackets, because that's now changed with the Coast Guard as well. So that might be confusing for folks. We'll go over that, but not tonight. It's going to take a whole show to kind of go through those numbers a little bit.
Let me ask you this, too.
Type 1, Type 2, Type 3 is gone, and they're using a different numbering system.
Okay. I want to ask you, too, going back to the Bassmasters and these professional fishermen, how cool, because I know you're into boats, how cool are their boats?
They're very nice. They got all the right stuff. So that's one of the things I can tell you. Electronics has changed so much now. They have a fish finder at the driver's seat. They got a fish finder at the front. They may have a fish finder at the back. They got screens everywhere. They've got 3D and clear view and all these things where they can actually see a fish on the bed, and it looks like a fish. It's almost like looking at a video. In fact, some of them are like video, where you can actually see the fish. It's almost unfair how accurate they are. And I've heard talk amongst the groups that they should outlaw that because it makes it unfair. But this technology has gotten so good that even offshore, where they're doing these huge marlin tournaments, they can see a marlin 150 yards away.
Mm-hmm. And part of the deal,
drop the ballyhoo, and off they go.
And part of the sport, part of the challenge, and part of the sporty side of it is what? To be able to go find the fish. And if you've got this great electronic stuff, right, it just gives you such an advantage?
It does. It does. So that's some of the argument with electronics. But electronics absolutely have come very far, and for those that are interested in fishing and want, you can buy them, relatively cheap. They're under $1,000 now, $400 or $500 for a baseline unit that'll give you lots of visual, good graphics, good mapping systems. Again, it's changed fishing from the past for sure. That's why, remember, Phil, I talked about having Roland Martin and them, and getting to meet them was so cool because they didn't have that way back.
Yeah.
They actually had to look for fish and fish. And they really built this business for these guys that are coming in now. And things are changing and technology changes. But in the whole thought of that is when technology changes like that, you got to think about the resource. You want to make sure we have fish for the future. And you don't want to fish out an area or make it so easy to take fish that there's no chance.
All right, Major, we got to wrap it, sir. We certainly enjoyed it. Great stuff from you as always, and hope you have a great couple of weeks. We will talk to you again sometime in June, early part of June.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
You too, sir. Major Billy Downer from the Department of Natural Resources, SC Wild, right here on Sports Talk